This is the Invicta Formula Wheel from Asetek Sim Sports, their new flagship SimRacing wheel and first to feature a display. This high-end wheel aims to provide a premium experience with extensive personalization options. While fully compatible with all Asetek wheelbases, it also is compatible with other manufacturers' wheelbases, promoting an open ecosystem. Asetek sent me this wheel over free of charge for review purposes, also allowing me to customize it to my liking. In this review, I'm going to dive into all the crucial details I think you should know before considering a purchase. But first, a word from our sponsor of this video. Invicta is Asetek's most expensive wheel to date. Its high-end features come with a premium price tag starting at $1,249 before customization. For the highest configuration, you're looking at about $1,484 before taxes and shipping. I'll dive into the materials and options soon, and then sharing my thoughts on its value at the review's end. It's definitely a significant leap from their Forte wheel, but the Invicta line is all about no compromises. Ultimately, you'll need to weigh your own preferences and needs. For sim racers deeply invested in the Asetek ecosystem who've been anticipating this wheel, it might be an easy choice. Depending on your customization, the price puts it in a league with the Asher Racing Artura Ultimate, GSI Hyper P1, or the GSI FPE V2, just to name a few. Let's examine the Invicta's build quality, design, and features to see if it justifies its hefty price tag. When I first unboxed this wheel, it was a very different experience than I've become accustomed to with other Asetek wheels. Personally, they've never been my favorite in terms of design. I just never really liked the look, feel, and color scheme. The big difference with this wheel is that I had the opportunity to personalize many components using an early pre-release version of their 3D rendering web application. This allowed me to visualize my wheel and experiment with different materials and colors. I was able to customize the color of each rotary knob and joystick. I of course went with the red and black design for a clean and uniform look. The faceplate around the display can also be ordered in forged carbon or standard. I went with standard to provide some contrast with the button surrounds in forged carbon, which can't be changed. On the back, you can customize the paddles in either plain black or forged carbon. I went with the forged carbon to match the front. You can also customize which grips you want to outfit your wheel with. The Invicta wheel uses all the same current grip options available right now on the Forte lineup. You might already be familiar with the standard formula handle. This is the exact same that comes on the Forte wheel, or the XL variant of these grips, and finally their newest LMP handles. The cool part about this is if you already own one of the Asetek wheels with these grips, you can use them on your new Invicta wheel. So if you already have Forte handles, you might want to order the LMP to have both and swap back and forth. Because I already have the regular Forte handles and the LMP handles on hand, I decided to order the wheel with the XL handles, just because I hadn't had a chance to try them before. This way I would be able to try it with all three options and give you some of my impressions. I really enjoyed the experience of customizing my wheel, and I think many of you will too. Being able to create your personalized wheel is really cool, but it does come with some additional costs depending on your choices. The whole idea with this wheel is an ultra high-end premium experience, much like speccing a luxury or supercar. When I first pulled my personalized wheel out of the box, I was immediately struck with a feeling of holding something genuinely premium. It's like no other Asetek wheel. As I took in all the details, some things really stood out to me. The large embossed Asetek logo on the back really stands out. Some may not like it, but I personally think it's nice, and it's on the back anyway, so you don't really see it all the time. What's nice is the branding on the front is much more subtle, just a small Invicta logo script on the bottom of the display. One of my pet peeves with other Asetek wheels was the excessive amount of branding on the front. This feels much more understated, but it's still very clearly an Asetek product. and then the same sort of design language, but with a much more upgraded look and feel. The Invicta strikes a balance of high quality and lightweight materials, with a chassis CNC milled from a solid block of aluminum and a carbon fiber front plate. I didn't experience any flex with this wheel during my testing. The Invicta wheel weighs in at an impressive 1500 grams without a quick release. This rigidity and lightweight design allow you to sense more important force feedback details. I've been testing a lot of very lightweight wheels lately, and I'm truly understanding the effect this has on the overall experience now, especially if you're on a Prima or Forte wheelbase or something with a lower output. Lighter wheels are going to feel much better at lower strengths. I tested the wheel both on my Invicta wheelbase and my SimiCube 2 Ultimate, which I don't run anywhere close obviously to the max Newton meters, but the wheel felt really great to drive with, which I'll talk about shortly. Let's look at all the features now. Obviously the standout feature of this wheel is the display in the center. This is a 4.3-inch LCD 60Hz panel with a 800 by 480 resolution. You can choose from a selection of dash templates in Asetek's RaceHub software or a dashboard directly from SimHub. It's great to see Asetek offering this support, meaning I can use my favorite lovely dashboard on this wheel or any other template. That said, I do really like Asetek's dash templates though. They are very clean and have a lot of detail in the information, but can't be overly customized other than units of measure. The display itself was bright and vibrant and worked really well. I like some of Asetek's built-in idle screens and startup animation, and the support for SimHub is a fantastic way to keep those who want to use their favorite templates happy. The display supports all the inputs and information from the majority of sims, as well as having the option of toggling rotational elements similar to the Moza Vision GS wheel. However, this only works with Asetek wheelbases as it uses data from the wheelbase to make the calculations, which allows for easier information reading during turning. Honestly, I'm not really looking at it so much during a turn, but it's obviously cool to have this ability. The display does have touchscreen capability, but this feature is in their pipeline, so it wasn't operational on my review unit yet. You'll be able to do things like switch between dashboard screens and information. This wheel has a ton of inputs. You have 12 push buttons with 2 on the back of the wheel, 6 thumb encoders, 3 rotary encoders in the center, 2 funky or kinky switches on either side, and 2 rocker switches on the top. Each button has a lighted area above for labels, similar to other Asetek wheels. Although I'm not personally a fan of this design, I would prefer just to have backlit buttons with labels. The sections themselves are pretty small and I don't particularly like the look of the labels once they're applied. It somehow makes the wheel look cheaper than it is. Just my opinion. There's also a circular LED ring around the rotary encoders in the center that looks really good. There are more encoders on this wheel than I know what to do with, honestly, but that's not a bad problem to have. Many I'm sure will find great uses for some of these adjustments. The button caps are all aluminum instead of plastic, which really gives it that premium look and feel. But unfortunately the buttons had a bit of play when moving your finger around. The good news though is that the activation of them felt really good, and I didn't notice any rattling or noise from them while driving. So I guess it's really not a big issue, but worth mentioning I think. The thumb encoders were really nice to operate, very smooth, and don't need a ton of force. They were easy to operate with both bare hands and gloves. The rotary encoders in the center also felt great. They can be configured as incremental inputs or individual positions. One thing that would have been nice though is a push button on them as well, which is lacking. The rocker switches on the top are nice and in a good position and are easy to make quick adjustments with while driving. The funky switches on both sides are great, but for me personally, I found them a bit too far away from the grips. I don't have very large or small hands, but I found to operate the funky switches, I had to pull my hand off the grip a bit. I think if they had shifted them a bit more or removed the thumb encoders there, it could have been easier to operate. But again, not a huge deal, and it might not be a problem for some with larger hands, but just worth mentioning. On the back, you've got 2 additional buttons that are great for storing quick shortcuts or settings you need on the go. My wheel comes equipped with 3 paddles on each side, the shifter paddles, clutch, and top paddle to use for more inputs. You can order the paddles in forged carbon like I did, or standard aluminum. These are a nice upgrade from Asetek's standard plastic paddles you get on their Forte wheels. The shifters themselves though looked to be the same and felt similar, albeit with a bit stronger activation force, due in part to the additional magnets that were added on this unit. But other than that, it felt pretty similar to my Forte wheel. I've not been a biggest fan of Asetek shifters. I find they lack a bit of character and feel solid but a bit dull and quiet. But this is one of those things though where we're all going to differ a bit. I would prefer a more clicky shifter like those on GSI wheels over these, but at the end of the day they work well and still felt good to shift with, just not my favorite. The extra magnets do make them feel better than the Forte Formula Wheel though, but not night and day. The top paddles and clutch paddles are all the same, it looks like, as the Forte wheels. I do appreciate that all the paddles are easily adjustable and easy to remove as required if you're changing the quick release hub or handles. Speaking of handles, let's talk about the grip options. Instead of designing all new grips or handles for the Invicta wheel, Asetek chose to stick with the same ecosystem of grips they've been using on the Forte wheels. This actually seems like a good idea, meaning if you have a Forte wheel already, you can swap around grips, or perhaps you just bought a set of the LMP handles for your Forte wheel and now you want to use them with the Invicta wheel, you could, and purchase a different grip so you've got a few different ones to use. I tried all three options except for the suede version and found the standard Forte size to be the best for me personally on this particular wheel. The XL handles felt good thanks to their thicker design, but made reaching certain inputs a bit harder with my hand size. The LMP handles shape is nice, but for some reason they used a more slippery type of material for these handles than the other grips, which are more tacky. One advantage though is the LMP handles don't seem to attract as much dust as the other Forte handles, which are hair and dust magnets. I like what Asetek is doing with their wheel ecosystem and swappable grips. I think it's pretty cool and switching them only takes a few minutes. It's possible we might see more grip options from them in the future, but I'm just speculating. Overall, everything feels extremely well made on this wheel, and in my opinion, I think it justifies the price tag a bit, but for me the only thing really missing here is some upgraded paddle shifters to truly compete against some other high-end wheels in this category that have better feeling shifters in my opinion. As for the build quality of the wheel itself, it really is top-notch stuff here from Asetek, and it's the first Asetek wheel. I'm really happy with how it looks on my rig. Let's talk about software and configuration, which I think Asetek handles very well. In their Race Hub software, you can easily customize the button lighting, distinguishing colors for pressed and unpressed states, which I think is a nice touch. You can also set certain buttons to have static lighting when activated for specific functions, which is helpful. Brightness and telemetry effects displayed on the wheel are also adjustable. I'm running the new Race Hub version 4.0, which now supports this wheel. You'll notice a new tab for display where you can change the included dash templates. There are only a few at the moment, but perhaps we'll see more in the future, or even better, a way to upload user-created ones. Instead, Asetek has opened up the ecosystem a bit to allow for SimHub support, which I think will be much appreciated. This enables you to use your favorite dash templates and even LED profiles, at least for the rev lights right now. I was actually able to load a Daniel Newman racing profile for the rev lights and it worked flawlessly. Those already comfortable with SimHub will undoubtedly appreciate this support, and for those who just want a simple way to make changes, RaceHub has got you covered. I think this is a win-win for everyone, so well done Asetek. Within the software, you can also adjust idle effects on the wheel, similar to their other hardware, or sync up all your Asetek hardware to display the same lighting effects. Asetek really likes their lights, but they do a great job with them if that's your thing. I've been a big fan of Asetek's RaceHub software, and with its recent updates, it continues to get better. Most importantly, of course, is how this wheel feels to drive with and use. Well, overall, I found it really great. The wheel feels very lightweight, and at around 300mm, I think it's the right size for driving both GT and LMP style cars, as well as Formula or open-wheeled vehicles. Some might feel it's a bit too big for Formula cars, preferring something at around 285 or 290mm, but I think this wheel strikes a good balance at 300mm, allowing you to use it across all three disciplines. This versatility could make a strong case for it being your only wheel. That said, I don't like using wheels with displays for cars that have dash displays in the sim. It just doesn't feel right or authentic to me. I tend to use wheels like the Invicta for driving prototypes, LMP cars, or for example the Porsche RSR, which has a wheel with a display on it in real life. But if I had to have one wheel for an Asetek setup, I would definitely splurge on this one. I tested this wheel on both my Asetek Invicta review unit wheelbase and my daily driver, the SimiCube 2 Ultimate. It's great that Asetek is supporting an open ecosystem with third-party wheelbase adapters. The Invicta wheel can be even connected directly to any PC via the USB-C port behind the quick release. Although you need to source a cable and have an open port or hub to run it through, it's not the best experience on a third-party wheelbase. A better option is using their third-party hub that you can either directly swap on the wheelbase or attach to a quick release for easier wheel swapping. Honestly, as nice as this wheel is, someone using a SimiCube wheelbase would probably be better off buying a third-party wheel with an exterior connection point rather than fiddling with adapters and hubs. But if this wheel really speaks to you and you don't have an Asetek wheelbase, you do have a few options to make it work. Now back to the driving experience. Because of the lightweight design of this wheel, I was able to get a really good sense of detail and felt it very responsive. Some wheels with a display at the top tend to introduce an increased inertia. I felt this less with the Invicta than say with the Grid Porsche RSR wheel, which does feel a bit top heavy. The Invicta just felt more balanced. Now reaching some of the inputs while driving was fine, but for several you do need to take your hands off the grips a bit. Overall, it was a great wheel to drive with, but it doesn't offer anything standout from other high-end wheels that I've tried. But for those in the Asetek ecosystem seeking a matching premium wheel for their setup, this should check a lot of boxes. In conclusion, the Asetek Invicta wheel is an impressive piece of sim racing hardware. Its robust build quality, extensive input options, and versatile display I think make it a strong contender in the high-end wheel market. The software integration, particularly SimHub support, was a smart move by Asetek. Without it, the wheel might have had less appeal to those non-Asetek users. While there are minor issues like slight button play and the overall paddle feel, these are all overshadowed though by the overall quality and functionality. The wheel's lightweight design and balance feel contributed to a really excellent driving experience across various racing disciplines. The open ecosystem approach with interchangeable grips is both innovative and user-friendly. However, the price point and some ergonomic considerations might give pause to potential buyers. For those invested in the Asetek ecosystem or seeking a premium feature-rich wheel with a display, the Invicta is a compelling option. It successfully bridges the gap between GT, LMP, and Formula style wheels, potentially serving as an all-in-one solution for many sim racers. I hope you found this video helpful in your decision-making process. If you have any questions or thoughts about this wheel, be sure to leave them in the comments below. Don't forget to hit that like button and consider subscribing for more sim racing gear reviews. As always, stay safe and enjoy your racing.